Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Boston College Virtual Open House. My name is David Weber. I'm an Associate Director in the Office of Undergraduate Admission. I'm going to serve as the moderator for this evening's program. Our Virtual Open House started early last week, and we'll continue to offer different conversations, different webinars, different workshops for prospective students and their families well into mid-October. So this is session number 6 of 29 that is running from mid-September to mid-October. And we welcome you to continue to explore the sessions that are coming up later this week and in the weeks ahead. As we close the session, I'll give you an idea of what else is coming up this week. Tonight's topic is a good one. It's an important one. Boston College at Work, discussing research, graduate school, and career resources. At Boston College, we are very proud of the outcomes that we get to share each year. And 6 months after graduation, the Career Center surveys recent graduates and they issue a report. And the report is called Where Have They Landed? And it's a play off of course, the Boston College Eagle mascot. But, and also may I add, the report is easily accessible by you. So if you want to go on the Career Center website, I'll give you a link later, you can look at all this great data. But for the class of 2019, 6 months post-graduation, 95% were either employed, enrolled in graduate school, or involved in a service or fellowship program. And if we want to look at that number a little more closely, of the 95%, 73% are employed, 18% in graduate school, and 4% in service and fellowship programs. But note, within a 5-year window of graduation, the Career Center estimates that actually about half of that class will be working through graduate programs and pursuing graduate degrees. So that's what we see on average at Boston College. These results don't just fall into your lap. There is a lot of hard work put in by students, hard work put in by faculty and staff, using resources like the Career Center, building faculty relationships, collaborating in our research communities. All of these experiences are preparing students to have the skills and the mindset needed to be a great professional hire, to be a dynamic law school, medical school, graduate school candidate. And maybe most importantly, we're helping our students really gather that mindset and the skills so as they leave Boston College and enter this complex and unpredictable world, they know who they are and who this world needs them to be. So I have a bunch of questions that are prepared for the 4 guest panelists who you're going to meet in just a minute. But I invite you over the course of this session to use the Q&A button that's on your screen to submit whatever questions that you may have. And I'm going to do my best using that Q&A button to get through as many, to put them out and allow our panel to provide those answers for you. The chat function is off. So if you do want to communicate with us, it has to be through the Q&A button. I'd love for you all to hear from tonight's conversation partners, Alice, Danielle, Giancarlo, and Madison, all of them current Boston College seniors that are not only working towards graduation in the spring, but preparing for the next step, whatever that may be. So we're going to go in order of first name, and Alice is going to kick it off in terms of introductions, and then we'll start our Q&A once everyone has introduced themselves. Alice, if you'd like to unmute, go ahead. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Alice Yang. I'm from North Wales, Pennsylvania, which is a little bit outside of Philadelphia. I'm currently a senior in the Carroll School of Management, and I'm studying finance and information systems. So a little bit more about me. I think coming into Boston College, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think what really helped me, especially in my sophomore year, realizing what I was interested in was, the Carroll School of Management, having that core curriculum where we're able to explore different areas of business, from marketing to finance, everything like that. So able to take those different classes, as well as having the Career Center, and specifically the amazing alumni network, as well as the network of current students, have really helped me figure out my interest in finance and info systems. And kind of going off that really helped me secure that internship that I was able to have, luckily, this past summer virtually at Citibank under their Markets and Security Services division. And I'm really excited to be able to return to Citi full time next year under the Security Services division.
Thanks so much, Alice. Congrats on the job. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Rinaldi, and I'm also a senior. I'm studying the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences as a double major in biology and philosophy with a minor in public health. And I'm also from Westfield, New Jersey. I'm also a pre-medical student, so at the current moment, I am interviewing at medical schools, and it's all happening over Zoom, but typically this is the time where I'd be traveling kind of all over the country to interview at potential medical schools. And to elaborate a bit on what the process was like for me, I took a really great test prep course on campus last year in the spring, which did end up going virtual, but it was really convenient to have that resource on campus for my test prep for the MCAT, which is a medical college admission test. Moving forward from that, I've really engaged with the pre-med office a lot, the pre-health office, excuse me, a lot in my preparation for the application process. And so they really prepared me by engaging me with mentors early on and having me have a personal faculty personal faculty advisor to read my essays and things like that to really get me connected to the people I needed to be connected with in order to apply to medical school. And one of the things I really appreciated the most about Boston College's preparation process is that they had a whole entire packet filled out with times, it was by month. So it was like, you need to have this done by March, you need to have this done by April, you should take your MCAT by this date, so that we were really on top of the game, me and my fellow applicants, so that we were the first in the rolling admission process for medical school to submit our applications. And so that's really benefited me because I have a lot of early interviews at this point lined up, or I've already actually had one interview. So Boston College has really prepared me to get to this point, and hopefully in a few months I'll have some responses.
Thanks, Danielle. My name is Giancarlo Isotti. I'm originally from Suffield, Connecticut, about an hour and a half or so west of Boston. And I'm currently a senior in the Carroll School of Management. I'm studying operations management and information systems. And I think, like Alice had mentioned, the Carroll School Core was really a formative experience for me because I wasn't sure exactly what area of business I wanted to go into. And I think taking our business statistics course my first year here at BC, which is pretty much like a deep dive into data and analytics for like the business world. And I think that was something that really drew my interest. And from there, I started concentrating in operations management and became interested in data and analytics and consulting. So that is really where my interest has been. And last fall, I studied abroad in Barcelona, and we can talk a little bit more later about recruiting abroad, which I think BC did a really amazing job of helping me to go through that process, not even being on campus, but using the Career Center and having a career advisor who I emailed back and forth almost every day during the heavy season of recruiting. But I ended up getting an internship this past summer with PricewaterhouseCoopers in their technology consulting fields, and I will be returning there hopefully in New York City next summer. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. Madison?
Thank you. That sounds really exciting. Hi, everyone. My name is Madison Kelleher, and I'm originally from Niskuna, New York. It's in the Albany area, about 2.5 hours west of Boston. I'm a senior in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, majoring in political science and Irish studies. Once I got onto campus at Boston College, I immediately went to talk to the pre-law advisor. So I took advantage of the Career Center before I could even start on my graduate school application or my actual jobs to get to my career. So Boston College really allowed me to explore my interest in pre-law from the start. I was able to be a part of a lot of pre-law mentorship opportunities, and I actually lived on Newton campus my freshman year. So I lived on the same campus as the law school. And I was not only able to meet law students, but actually able to attend classes and get a taste of what it would be like to be a law student. This actually brought me to my job during my time at BC. I was able to actually work for the Boston College Law School, so I got to meet students, faculty, and legal employers through that. And I was really able to see what it was like to work for a grad school. And in doing so, I learned that I might be interested in working in higher education. So not only did I enjoy the prospect of graduate school, but also working for one. So at this point, I'm beginning to search for jobs in higher education in the Boston area.
Excellent. Thank you all for those introductions. I love listening to what our students are up to. And as I mentioned, these jobs and internships don't just fall in your lap. There's so much legwork and hard work that has to go into it. Giancarlo, let's definitely get into that conversation about the recruitment season from abroad as well. It's interesting because almost half of our students study abroad. So there's going to be a lot of students that will be particularly interested to hear your story. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Keep submitting questions through the Q&A. I'm just going to ask one first. And this is kind of like you're a senior now, but let's go back 4 years. Let's put it in reverse and put you in the seats of many of the students that are watching this webinar right now. And going back to the fall of your senior year in high school, the midst of your college search, was research and internships and outcomes part of the conversation that you were having with your family, with your guidance counselors? Were you seeking these types of conversations out when you were in high school? Now, Madison, you had said you immediately got on it when you got here, right? So I'm curious for all of you, what was your mindset at that point? Because I think obviously those who are watching this session are in tune with it. They're asking those questions. What was it like for you guys? Was it part of your college search? And then I have a second part of that question. Do you remember the first moments when you started to take initiative in looking at future opportunities for internships, jobs, those sorts of things? So whoever wants to get started, let's just kind of open it up to conversation.
I can go first, David.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about graduate school before I even got to BC. So something I was considering was law school. So 3+3 programs, looking for 3 years of undergrad, 3 years of law school, and trying to get it done in 6 years. So that was something I was considering. And that was mostly enhanced because I was actually doing a law firm internship in high school. So I was really considering some place that I would like to stay for the long term, and that's Boston for me. So I was able to connect with Sal. He is the pre-law advisor in the Career Center. And as Danielle mentioned, that the Career Center is really good at, within certain career clusters, they're able to give you a worksheet or resources that really tells you about the timeline. So as a freshman, he was giving me resources that I was able to work on as a freshman. So it really was geared towards the trajectory you want to take, of how quickly you want to begin the process, and how in depth you want to go. So I felt really comfortable knowing that someone was willing to talk to me about law school when it was 4 years away.
I'll stay on the grad school train here and continue with the process for me. I came in knowing that I wanted to pursue health professions graduate school, presumably pre-med, but I wanted to keep my options open, and Boston College has a lot of pre-health tracks here. None of them are majors, and I think that's important to just put out there for any of you who are curious. But they all do come along with advising through our pre-health office here on campus. So the pre-health office is full of advisors who are able to, talk to students, and they know all of the different tracks and are able to guide you and provide you information without necessarily saying, oh, well, you would be great at the pre-dental track freshman year. Nobody knows, right? So it's really based around the interests that you express freshman year. When I came in freshman year, I knew that I wanted to study the sciences, and I actually ended up expanding that to study some humanities as well through our core curriculum. But I was really just looking for a school that was strong in the sciences when I was looking at colleges. And Boston College really stood out to me because I wasn't going to be pigeonholed into biology once I chose that because of our core curriculum. But I knew that we were a tier 1 research institution and that we had all of these great resources in being in the healthcare center of perhaps even the United States in Boston. So I knew that Boston College was a great place to study the sciences and pre-health. But the moment that I really connected with an advisor was my freshman year general chemistry professor, Professor Neil Wolfman, who's unfortunately no longer with us, but I have some really great other advisors I've met throughout the years who really mirror his same philosophy of connecting with students as people rather than just students. So Professor Wolfman actually invited a friend and I to get lunch with him because he realized we were a bit timid in terms of asking a professor to get lunch as a freshman. And I think those faculty relations are really special at Boston College, but common as well. So I had that relationship pretty much right off the bat within the first month or so of freshman year. And he often offered me shadowing opportunities and other things to consider, right off the bat freshman year, which was really incredible for me.
Professor Wolfman was just an incredible faculty member, and devastating that he had passed away about a year ago, but was a mentor to so many students and other faculty members who hopefully take on his philosophy of working with students. Giancarlo, I noticed you unmuted yourself. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. I'll go back a little bit to the high school vision. I think I didn't necessarily know exactly what area of business that I wanted to go into from high school, but I knew that business was something that interested me. And looking back, I think that's a good mentality coming into BC, is that if you know, like Danielle was saying, like she knew she wanted to go into like medical, like health field or business. I think if you can come here and say like, these are what my interests are and my skills, that the core curriculum and the professors that we have here as mentors can really help you to find the more niche interests and like the job fields that correspond to the skills that you have and the interests that you have. And I think that's a super beneficial way to come here and really open your eyes to fields that maybe in high school you might not have courses in, or that you didn't even really know existed. And I think the job market's ever evolving. So you don't know exactly like what's going to be here in 4 years, or jobs might start to shift a little bit. But I think the first time that I really like took initiative freshman year in terms of job search with PwC actually specifically was in a like day in the office type visit at the end of my freshman year here. It was just Boston College students. There was probably 30 or so students that were invited to the office for a day and to learn about PwC. And I think things like that happen all the time at BC. Companies from all over Boston and all over the country come to BC to try and meet the students. And I think it's a less aggressive approach than like, we just want you to like come work at our company. I think it's more of a interactive, like let's meet each other and see if it's a good fit for both of us. So going to the office was an example of something like that, of them trying to reach out in a more informal way. And I think from then on, I was able to keep connections with associates and different people that worked at PwC and keep building that relationship throughout my college career. But I think an important thing that I've noticed in BC is that we come here to get an education, and that's why we come to Boston College, and not necessarily coming here to get a job. And I think that's an important mentality, at least for me, that I had the first couple of years, is that like I'm here first and foremost to get an education. And I guess like in the end, the goal is a job, but to prioritize academics rather than necessarily internships like right from the get-go. I think that can be put off maybe until sophomore or junior year.
I think that is wise words. Go ahead, Alice.
Yeah, kind of going off what Giancarlo was saying, going into BC, like I really wasn't thinking much about, post-grad or career. I knew I kind of wanted to do business. Again, I didn't really know what field of business I wanted to go to. And I think something I really valued about BC was that core curriculum, that opportunity to explore a lot of different areas, not only within business, but within all different fields of study, and just really getting exposure to that and exploring what I'm interested in. And I think freshman year was when I really realized, how many companies are interested in coming to BC and talking to the students. And I think I really took my freshman year as a time to sort of go out there and kind of practicing my networking skills, as well as just kind of seeing what was out there, like what life is like post-grad in, a professional field, and getting to talk to different companies and seeing, the cultures at different companies, the opportunities they offer, and just kind of taking that year to just learn about what was out there. And then, moving forward, kind of developing those communication skills and moving forward into my sophomore and junior year, being able to utilize those skills that I had developed through, talking with a lot of different companies and learning, and using those to sort of, network a lot more and keep those relationships going, and finding a job or internship that was fitting for me.
I do like your approach, Alice and Giancarlo. When we're talking about management and business specifically, most high school students don't have a rigorous sequence of business coursework within their high school. Some do, actually some do, but most don't. Most are taking more liberal arts focused courses, maybe a business elective here or there. So it's not surprising in any way when a student enters into the management school and says, I want to study business. I just know that inside. Inside, I want to study business. I just don't know what type. And it's this business core which does open your eyes to what really exists out there. Coming in with that open mind, whether it's in business, whether it's in arts and humanities and social sciences or STEM, there's a lot to explore once you get here. Let's talk a little bit more about the nuance that exists within your particular areas of work and concentration right now. So, we have Madison that, is social science driven, looking at law school, thinking about jobs in higher ed. I'm curious about, what does Sal Cipriano in the pre-law program, what are some of his day-to-day or week-to-week or semester-to-semester advising tips that he's providing for you? Same for what you're doing in pre-med, and same for your management work as well. What are some of the common day-to-day or semester-to-semester tips and or preparations that you're doing in your work?
I can start talking a little bit about the Carroll School of Management. So the Carroll School of Management, in addition to the Boston College Career Center, has another career advising staff specifically for the Carroll School. And I worked a lot with them in the day-to-day, starting from sophomore year. We have a course here called the Career Accelerator in the Carroll School that really takes you through how to apply to jobs, how to interview for jobs, how to really work in an internship, and how to become a professional after being a student. And that was something that was super helpful to me, because it's like the nuances, like David was saying, that in applying to jobs can be so difficult sometimes, but when we have these amazing resources, it can make it so simple and easy, from things like the little nitpicky type things that a company might look at on a resume or a cover letter, that having an advisor there that's like, you should change this or do this, is really great. So working with a lot of those career advisors, they'll read your resumes, read your cover letters, and email you back and forth tips. Something that was super helpful for me going into consulting. A lot of the consulting firms do case style interviews. So we actually have a case coach, multiple case coaches on campus who will help prep you for those case interviews, and a lot of different resources like that I'm sure the rest of the group will hit on.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, I think something that I really took advantage of was more of the informal advising within the Carroll School. So the Carroll School sends out typically like a spreadsheet of a lot of different seniors and what they're going into for the underclassmen, specifically so that underclassmen can reach out to seniors so that they can have those conversations and sit down and get that help that they need with interview help or any sort of help regarding the recruiting process. And I think I really was able to take advantage of that, of utilizing the upperclassmen that we have here who were so willing to help any underclassmen with any sort of recruiting questions or help in anything like interview related and stuff like that. Also, the Carroll School has a bank week. So since I wanted to intern at a bank, they had an entire week where banks came on campus, and you were able to talk with BC alumni who all worked at the banks that were coming to campus, as well as current students who were planning on going to work at these banks full time next year. So it was so great to see that network of students and getting to talk with a lot of these people and forming those relationships with them and getting information from them.
Yeah, Alice made a really good point there with student student relationships with each other. So when I was a freshman, I joined a club called Boston College Emergency Medical Services. I'm actually wearing some of the gear right now, but that's our on-campus volunteer ambulance squad. And I've been working there since my freshman year before I even had any technical skills to join. I joined as what's called an observer, and I pretty much just did that. I observed, I documented calls, and I watched my fellow students really care for other students and BC community members who were in need. So that was a really great, foot in the door moment for me to get some hands-on clinical experience and get the training I needed to do that. But above all, I've really gained some really valuable experience and relationships with upperclassmen who were also applying to medical school. For example, a good friend of mine who is 1 year older than me, just started his first year at medical school at a school that I was interviewing at, and I got to call him up and have a mock interview with him 3 days before my interview. So not only did I have that relationship where I really got to know them, got to know what their process was like as they were going through the medical school interview process, but I got to continue that after he's already graduated and moved on to the next step. He really wanted to help me out to do the same thing. So those relationships go a long way. To expand on faculty mentorship, I know I mentioned one faculty member earlier, but we also have a really great pre-health committee, and the committee plays a really integral part in the application process for all pre-health applicants, whether that's dental, vet, medicine, or physical therapy, anything like that. This committee writes a letter of recommendation for any applicant who's applying through this channel. So basically, it's a Boston College seal of approval for any applicant who's applying. And I saw a question come in the chat, in the Q&A, that asked what the acceptance rate is for Boston College students applying to medical school. And through the committee letter process, 75% of applicants get in to a medical school that first time that they go through it. So that's a pretty great number. Makes me excited about my application process. And not only is that committee, it kind of sounds like they're very secluded and they're very separate, and they're just writing a letter about you. But my faculty advisor was on that committee, and one of my closest personal advisors on staff is also on that committee. She's the president. Her name is Dr. Danielle Rinaldi. During the coronavirus pandemic, when we got sent home, Dr. Rinaldi gave me her cell phone number. And I called her multiple times with random questions, sometimes kind of late at night, and she would pick up and she would talk to me about whatever I was going through, whether it was a question about my MCAT date being canceled, which is a novel thing that hopefully nobody ever has to deal with, but I'm sure you guys can relate with SATs and things like that, or if it was just a question that I had about my essays. She was really there for me as a personal advisor throughout the process, and it was really great to have that connection with her, knowing that I would have someone who's so knowledgeable about the process who really wanted to help me out throughout.
That's so nice to hear that Danielle has had such a great experience with faculty and also making friends through fellow students at BC. I've had a really great experience meeting faculty at Boston College. So I feel like the pre-law advisor, Sal, would definitely have told me in freshman year to just interact with as many faculty and alumni as I can. And a way that I've been able to do that is through Eagle Exchange. This is almost a LinkedIn simply for Boston College students and alumni, and it has almost 10,000 alumni on this. So I'm able to go and search for lawyers in Boston or people who work in higher ed in Boston and really reach out to these people, and they're really willing to speak to you as well. I'll tell a quick story about a way I was able to meet a faculty member that I still hang out with to this day. So freshman year, it was second semester that I took my first political science course. And it was the first time I've taken a college political science class, and I was definitely certain that I was going to meet this professor in office hours. So it was a night class. I think it was from 4:30 to 5:45, and there were only 14 students in my class. And this was an introduction to political science, and my friends had taken it first semester and said they had 60 students in the course. And I was so happy that I was able to have such a small discussion-based class. So I went to meet the professor and I introduced myself and kind of asked, like, so why do we only have 14 students in our class and it's at like a different time? And the professor introduced herself to me as the dean of the Graduate School of Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. So I was able from second semester freshman year to make a connection with someone who I hang out with to this day. So last summer we went to get Shake Shack together and caught up. So it's really been something where she's listened to me throughout my career search, but also someone who stays in touch about classes and just my life in general. So I'm really thankful to know Professor Hetzner, and that was a connection I didn't even know I was making at the time.
That's great. I love that. And I was going to save some of this information for the end, but because Danielle was speaking about Danielle Tagian, who's part of the letter committee within pre-med, Professor Tagian will actually be on one of these virtual open house webinars this Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern. It's a coffee and conversation with BC faculty, where it's Professor Tagian and Phil Landrigan, who's the director of our Global Public Health Program. So you can.
So cool. Sorry to interrupt, David.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're interested in public health or medicine, go to that.
Absolutely. So Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Tune into that one. You can register that right through the BC Open House link that you registered for this one. Madison, I'd love to hear that. I had a question for all of you, and Madison, you just answered it in your way, and I'm curious if the rest of you can maybe touch on it a little bit. Of course, there's the Career Center. There's this formal counseling and advising that takes place. But like that situation, Madison, that just happened organically in class. And you've got now a mentor, a go-to person that you can lean on to talk about your academic or professional or just your personal future. Professor Wolfman, in a way, served in that capacity for you, Danielle. But maybe has there been other faculty members who have carried a similar role for you, Danielle, Alice, or Giancarlo?
Certainly. I've had a number of really close faculty advisors during my time here at BC, and one of them was my assigned advisor freshman year. So every freshman is assigned an advisor when you enter as a Boston College student, and mine was Professor Chris Constas in the philosophy department. He happened to also be one of my professors at the time for a small discussion-based class, kind of like Madison. But as a timid freshman, I wasn't sure if I wanted to initiate that, and I happened to just be assigned him as my advisor. And so we had kind of a scheduled meeting, and I actually was just in his office this past week updating him about my medical school admission process, because he's been helping me out along the way, writing recommendation letters and things like that. But also we were just catching up about what it's like to live on campus these days. He has 2 children who are now sophomores here. And so we've gotten actually really close over the years, just invested in each other's lives because we've maintained that connection. So that's been really nice to have a personal relationship with a professor, kind of like Madison said with her professor, with the dean of the graduate school. That's pretty cool. But it's definitely nice to have, somebody to lean on in the sense of, helping out with academic aspects of your life, but also in terms of, personal struggles or personal feats that you want to share with them as well.
Yeah, I the Carroll School, Alice? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely feel really supported by all the different professors that we have here. I think one professor that really stood out for me was Michael Rush, who retired a couple of years ago. He was my basic finance professor, and basic finance is like the first sort of finance course that you take. And it's also part of the Carroll School core curriculum, so all students are going to be taking basic finance if you're in the business school. That was my first finance class, and I was taking that also during the time when I was recruiting for a finance internship. So I definitely didn't have much experience with finance yet, and I remember I would just go to his office hours all the time, and he was so welcoming and helping me answer any sort of questions that I had, preparing me for technical interviews, behavioral interviews, and just really being that source of support for me. And also one of my accounting professors, Vishal Baloria, I had for managerial accounting. He actually emailed all of his students individually to set up a time to meet one-on-one with each student, just solely to get to know them. He just wanted to learn about his students. He wanted to ask about us. And I think that's when I really felt so much care from the professors. And he wasn't the first professor to do that for me. Like, a lot of professors want to reach out to students and set up meeting times one-on-one just so they can get to know their students. And I think that definitely speaks to the culture of BC, and it's definitely made me feel super supported.
Yeah, definitely. I would echo everything that Alice had just said. Quick note before I continue answering, that the Carroll School of Management has an additional core curriculum in addition to the university core, which is like the typical philosophy, theology courses that we offer here. But in the Carroll School, it's a wide array of classes, probably one or two in each of the departments that we offer. So finance, accounting, the information systems, operations management, marketing, and a few others, organizational behavior. Really a wide range of courses to kind of get a feel for what you like. So going back to my original answer, talking about business statistics was a course that I had really enjoyed freshman year. And the best part of that was that my professor was amazing, Professor Linda Boardman Liu. And I had gone into her office and really just gotten to know her as a person. And I think developing that relationship over the course of freshman year and sophomore year, I ended up being a teaching assistant for her up until now, actually, which really helped us mold that professional relationship, and as well as like just a kind of friend to have in your corner. And I think that's something that's really important to have at BC. And there's so many people here who are looking to be that person who can be there for you when you need help with something. And I think I found that abroad too. I was trying to email professors and faculty to get courses approved here. And I knew that I could go to her with anything when one of my professors wasn't answering. I said like, hey, can you try and reach out for me or help me with this? And she did it right away and they answered her. So I think there are so many people here on campus who are willing to help out in any situation. So it's a matter of finding someone who you can kind of click with on a personal level that can be there for you and be that mentor.
And I think, finding someone can require a little bit of effort. It's a two-way street, right? No matter if you go to the largest state flagship school or the smallest college in the country, faculty are going to be there. They love teaching. All of our faculty at Boston College teach undergraduates. Those who work with master's and PhD students are still teaching undergraduate sections as well. And you have to put into it. You have to be proactive and show up at office hours or be willing to engage in a conversation after class. It's rewarding if you do, and know that the faculty are absolutely game for it. Giancarlo, I want to continue with you because as you had mentioned in your introduction, you were working on developing internships as you were abroad in Barcelona. So a couple questions have come through the Q&A asking, how did you do that? How does that work? What type of communication sequence or experience was that like for you? And again, about half of our students study abroad, so continuing to develop your professional goals and your identity and your profile, it's all important. So go ahead, Giancarlo, what was that like for you?
Yeah. I would say going into it, applying, Boston College students apply for abroad programs typically in their junior year, for the semester programs in their sophomore year. And I really wanted to go abroad in the spring because the majority of the recruiting on campus happens in the fall semester. And I actually ended up getting like placed in the fall semester of my junior year, which at first I was extremely nervous about. It's like, I'm not going to get a job. And I was really worried about it going into the semester. And once I got to Barcelona and I was there, I had kept in close contact with the Career Center here. And as I was mentioning, that professor who I was a teaching assistant for. And I think keeping in touch from being abroad to the Boston College community is really important for the career recruiting. Also being in touch with the companies that you're recruiting with and just being open about the situation that you're in. I think just telling them, oh, I'm abroad, there's a time difference, if my phone's not working, like little things, I think they're very understanding because I think a lot of the companies value the study abroad experience and what you gain from it. So they're definitely not going to demote you in any way in the application process. I'll say two other things. I think one, the Career Center is really great about helping students who are studying abroad. That was one thing that I thought was going to be difficult, was a lot of companies in the past had come physically onto Boston College's campus and interviewed students in our Career Center here. But the Career Center actually set up Skype interviews for me, still like physically through the Career Center, but I was able to Skype in from across the world kind of, which I thought was a really cool experience. Additionally, like the career coaches were really great in being able to email me within days, resume and cover letter tips, which was incredible. So I think after the experience had happened, I think it was not worth being as stressed out about because of all the resources that Boston College offers. I will add to that, I saw a couple questions about study abroad in general. I think it's definitely a very valuable experience, and I think it definitely has added a lot to my Boston College education. I think, one, in the sense of growing personally, I think I grew so much as a human being and just as a person from studying abroad, and kind of taking myself so much out of my comfort zone and kind of like plopping me in a different part of the world, meeting other Boston College students, meeting other local students. BC does a really great job with study abroad programs in having hosts and BC faculty abroad who are there as resources. And I think academically and professionally, it was really great to take Spanish classes and learn about the Spanish education system and the Spanish business world. It was really cool. So would definitely highly recommend that.
Excellent. Thank you, Giancarlo. And also, students can also explore summer abroad programs too, which are different and much shorter and concentrated than the semester program that Giancarlo did. And they're usually classes that are taught by BC faculty that you can take abroad. So I won't get it. We could do a whole other session on that, so we'll get into that now. But just know that there are incredible international options for students. A couple questions have come through the Q&A with regards to the research communities and the culture. And Danielle, I was hoping maybe you could share some insight into what type of research take place at BC, perhaps within the programs that you're in, but also within students that you know who are doing other things as well. Or Danielle, if you could talk about the research communities, that's what I meant to say.
Certainly. So I haven't personally engaged in any research opportunities here on campus, but I'd like to start with an anecdote about how available they are to students here on campus. So during my sophomore year, I was actually walking through our science building, Higgins Hall, about 2 weeks into the fall semester. I was brand new to my organic chemistry class, one of the bigger classes that I've taken here at Boston College, over 100 students. And the professor stopped me as I was walking through the lobby and called out to me by name. So I was like, oh my gosh, you already know my name. That's pretty cool. And her name's Holly Deek. She's amazing. I love her. And so I got to talking with Professor Deek, and she asked me if I was interested in doing research on campus. And I told her, let's meet in office hours. And I later politely declined because I was more interested in the clinical side. But just to know that I wasn't seeking out this research opportunity. It really did seek me out. So just to know that they're so available and there are so many that are happening on campus, particularly in my experience in the STEM field, but also in other fields. So just to touch on what some of my friends have done, even just in the past year or two, I've had two friends who did research at Mass General Hospital, one in the neurosurgery department and another on the operations side of the efficiency of operating room procedures in terms of turnover time and things like that. I've also had a number of friends do research on campus, one in Professor Canale's fish lab that he has here on campus, and another, just to touch on an area that's not STEM, one of my roommates actually just completed a research project in bilingual education with Professor Maria Brisk, who is kind of on the forefront of a new educational model, and that's through the Lynch School of Education and Human Development. So regardless of the area that you're interested in pursuing, there's an abundance of research on campus. To name one more, there's actually one of my roommates from sophomore year was doing research in the political science department with Professor Peter Krause, and they wrote a really fascinating paper. If anybody's interested in Game of Thrones, I recommend reading it. It was about how they used data from the Civil War to predict the ending of Game of Thrones before it came out. So there are some really, really cool research opportunities here happening on campus in whatever field that you're interested in. And I definitely recommend, if you know that you want to pursue research, once you get on campus, just do some research into what the faculty members in those departments are doing. And sometimes it's as simple as sending an email, because as David mentioned, all of the professors here, regardless of if they're working with graduate students in some capacity, they are also teaching undergrads. So that means they're looking to those undergrads to help out with their research. Even if you're coming in with no research experience whatsoever, they'll put in the time to train you because they know that they'll have you for a few years. So definitely abundant and definitely high level. I know that our Tier 1 research designation is pretty rare in the United States, and that makes us, do it. That's one of the benefits of having a medium-sized school, that we have those research opportunities available at the large scale, but they're offered to such a smaller pool of students that you really get to dip your toes in early.
Thanks, Danielle. Can you guys talk a little bit about the culture on campus when it comes to finding internships and research opportunities and jobs? Oftentimes we get questions about, is Boston College competitive when it comes to getting grades in the classroom? And we oftentimes hear a response from students, no, it's more collaborative than anything. Well, there's grades and then there's jobs, right? What would you guys say with regards to jobs and the culture surrounding, students lifting each other up, or is it a little bit more cutthroat when it comes to that type of stuff?
I want to echo something that Giancarlo said earlier about how at BC you come to get an education. And I think to add on to it, I think that it's implied that through that education that BC students are successful, that they do get internships and they do get jobs for most of their summers here at BC. I have a feeling as a political science student with friends within all disciplines throughout the academic realm that I haven't really come across a lot of competition. I'm not sure what the recruiting is like in the Carroll School of Management, but I do know that throughout everything it's not as unified. It's more of over the year you search for your job kind of independently along with the help of Boston College. So I have found that all my friends, as we do have internships pretty much every summer, that we're all working towards different goals. So I feel like it's a very collaborative environment where we celebrate each other's wins in that realm.
That's great. Go ahead, Alice.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, for me, in my personal experience, definitely been a very collaborative sort of culture. I know during my recruiting process, kind of like what I mentioned before about those informal advisors, meeting with upperclassmen. I remember just like sitting in their rooms for hours and they would just grill me to make sure I knew like how to answer these questions. And they really, wanted the best for me. And even, recruiting for my junior year internship at City, I actually knew someone who was interviewing for the exact same position as me, and we actually got together and sort of helped each other and quiz each other and ask each other questions and go through what we would say and share what we found in terms of the technical questions, and really just share that sort of information with each other and help each other out. And I think we both really wanted to really wanted the best for each other and wanted to sort of practice with each other, and it's been so great, like being able to utilize that network of students, and because everyone really does want to help you. And I think that's definitely something that I found here.
Thanks, Alice. Yeah, Giancarlo.
Yeah, I'll add to that quickly. Like we had mentioned at the beginning of this, it's almost everyone will find something to do after Boston College, whether that be a grad program or a job or internship or something of that nature. And I think in the job search, it's more a matter of when and where you get a job opposed to like someone else is taking my job. And I think that everyone here that I've worked with is definitely very supportive in the job search, because we all know it can definitely be stressful. So I think kind of pumping each other up and making each other try to enjoy the process rather than stress out about it is what I found.
I found a question in the chat it's interesting. It's kind of getting back down to the nuts and bolts of this. With regards to getting internships, did you identify these internships on your own? Did you identify them through BC Alum? Did you identify them through faculty? Did you use the career office? I think in many cases it's a combination of all of that. But I guess my simple question is, how do these kids like you get internships? How do you really do it? And does it start with a visit to the Career Center, or is it more luck by connecting with a faculty member? I think there's a lot of people that are hearing these great opportunities that exist saying, but how do I get that when I get to BC? So at the base level, how do you make that a reality?
I can start with that one. I think definitely it's a combination of everything. But it definitely also requires some effort, like we were talking about with making relationships with professors. I think specifically in the business world, relationships are a huge part of it. And that was what I think it was for me starting during my freshman years, making connections first and foremost with people at Boston College. And then moving outside of Boston College to alumni who are working at different companies and getting a feel for what I was interested in and really networking with them to see what their day-to-day life is in their jobs. And I think finally is networking with different recruiters and companies who are looking to find Boston College students, and the relationships that you make with them are super important and can be helpful through the interview process. And I think that that also kind of gives you a leg up in the sense that you know about the company already, you know how the company is functioning, and you already know someone on the inside. And like we had mentioned before, there are so many BC alumni who are so willing to reach out to Boston College students, whether it's just for a 15-minute coffee chat or to shadow them at their place of work, that I think is super helpful. But again, I think it does require that initiative and that effort to kind of put in that work to get there.
For sure. Giancarlo, that's excellent. And I want to provide a little bit of data for those that are tuning in. I think we may have lost Madison for a minute. Maybe she'll be back. Here she comes. So a little bit of data about internships and jobs. And this is from the Career Center. 86% of our graduating students completed an internship. That's from our 2019 data. Of that 86%, 33% of our students carried 3 or more internships over the course of their time at BC. And 72% of our students that were employed 6 months post-graduation used a Boston College career resource to obtain that job. So the vast majority of students that are finding internships and finding employment are using Career Center, faculty resources, conversations, a mixture of both. And of course, the Alumni Network, which I'll also mention, the Eagle Exchange is a tool that's basically a LinkedIn network that's built for Boston College students and Boston College alumni. We have about 100,000 working alumni, Boston College alumni out there. And many students use tools like Eagle Exchange as a way to build relationships and tips and advice and find job opportunities and internship opportunities in a network, which is basically just like LinkedIn, but for BC students as well. We're getting near the end of this, so it's 7:53 Eastern, and we need to wrap up by 8. But I've got 2 more questions for you, okay? First question is about Boston. Boston, it has close to 250,000 college students that reside in our city during the academic year. It's a hub for education, for healthcare, biomed research, biotech startups, entrepreneurship. Yes, we're very biased. It's the most wonderful city. But when it comes to internships, when it comes to engaging professionally in Boston, are we at an advantage for having all of these resources, but 250,000 college students also there? Or are we at a disadvantage because the competition makes it so tough? How are Boston College students prepared to enter into that competitive set? In Boston alone, not to mention the other cities that our students go to.
That's a really interesting question, David, because I don't know if I've ever really thought about it in terms of the sheer numbers, but I do think that Boston College students have a unique quality when it comes to competing with other schools. And I think that's how well-rounded we are as people, because not only our core curriculum, which Giancarlo mentioned earlier, contains philosophy, theology, but it also contains natural sciences, social sciences, math, art, things like that. Not only through that core curriculum, but also in extracurriculars. And I saw some questions come through in the chat about extracurriculars and balancing that time. I think Boston College students are really passionate. And whether or not you come in with a passion about a specific thing or you find it along the way, Boston College students do really find something that they care about, and it shows in their job search, in their internship search, in their graduate school application process. I think, not to say that students who go to other schools aren't also passionate, but it's something that I really value about every student that I know here at Boston College. They really have something that they care about, and they're willing to fight for it. And so whether or not you know that right now, you will find it if you do come to Boston College. And I think that makes us a special type of applicant to a job, an internship, a graduate school. And so I don't know if I can directly answer David's question about being an advantage or at a disadvantage due to the numbers, but I do think that we do have something special within the city of Boston.
I wanted to quickly touch upon 2 ways that Boston College helps people discover their passions. I feel like we've all spoken to you as seniors, people who have a direct interest in a career path and have been able to explore that throughout their time because they knew what it was. Something that my roommates and friends have taken advantage of are 2 programs through the Career Center called Envision and Endeavor. So Envision is a one-day retreat with peers, so you're able to interact with older students and create those peer student mentor groups. And then eventually you can participate in Endeavor, which is a 3-day program and something during winter break where you actually get to go into the city of Boston for part of it. So for example, my roommate Emerson is a communication major, and she is involved with like videography and really the creative side of things, and she had no clue what to start to explore for internships. So her freshman year, she was able to do Endeavor, and throughout this program, she not only explored things within Boston for actual companies she could work for, but actually focus with alumni and with faculty members and with people she could potentially work for and talk about what she's really passionate about. And I think that's something that sets Boston College apart is getting to know the whole person and working on the whole person. And I think that really shows in the work we do beyond BC.
Yeah, I'll add 2 quick things that we kind of already touched on, but talking about like my experience with PwC is that going into their Boston office for that one-day experience is that they specifically wanted Boston College students. There was only BC students there, and I think that that puts us at a huge advantage that a lot of companies are looking for us. And 2, that in a really great way, a lot of companies come to Boston College's campus to interview and to recruit and to look for BC students. So I think, again, that puts us at a huge advantage. And something that Danielle touched on that we haven't really talked a lot about today is kind of our Jesuit identity and the reflection that goes into the discernment. And same with what Madison was saying about trying to find a job, and especially in the business world, starting in the Carroll School in our first year program of Portico, which is an introduction to business and business ethics course. Talk about like, what do you really want to do in the world post grad? And 3 questions that I guess I'll leave you with are, what am I good at? Like, what are the skills that I have? What do I love to do? And really my interests. And what does the world need from me? And I think those are 3 questions that we ask ourselves a lot at Boston College, and really think about what we're going to do in our future. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Great. My last question for all of you, and totally off topic, but for those of you who are watching this presentation, you've probably noticed that the 4 students are on campus right now, living, studying, going about business as carefully and safely as we can. So my question to you guys, because you've got right now 226 people watching you, what's it like being in a university right now in the midst of social distancing and mask wearing and taking classes online and some in the classroom? How's it going? Doing okay? Head nods. All right, that's good. Go ahead, Giancarlo.
I'll say yes. I think it's definitely a little bit different after being here for 3 years before this, and really having like a set in stone way of kind of how I did things. I had my library routine and my food and kind of just how I did things. So it's definitely put a spin on it, but it's not a bad spin. It's been good. I've been able to enjoy time with my roommates and safely see people outside. The weather in Boston has been great, and I've definitely really enjoyed the in-person classroom experience. I think BC has done a really great job at making sure that we're going to in-person classes safely and everyone's wearing masks. And so definitely props to them.
Great.
Yeah, I think
Alice?
it's definitely been a different experience, but it's interesting to see how BC sort of adapts to this different environment. Something I've noticed is that professors are definitely super flexible in terms of, if you want to go to class, if you want to stay, online, and just very flexible in terms of coursework. And it's really interesting to see, we still are able to have like online social events and just attend everything through Zoom. And I know for my club, Girls Who Code, we're doing, online events. So getting to see a lot of the different clubs still holding events and still wanting to engage members, and especially, engage the freshmen who are coming in, and still having those sort of relationships, even though they are online. It's really interesting to see how everyone, like the school, the students, have all sort of adapted to this new environment.
Thank you guys very much. I want to end just with two quick things. These aren't questions. These are just kind of updates or statements. So earlier today, knowing that I was going to moderate this session, I went onto the Career Center website just to see, well, what's the Career Center doing today? What are they doing this week? So for those of you who are watching, this afternoon, the Career Center had a whole seminar on alternatives to Teach America, teaching and opportunities in independent Catholic and charter schools. This evening, they did a case overview for economic consulting. Tomorrow, they have Converse, the legendary sneaker company Converse, Chuck Taylor's, of course, but also the Magic Johnsons and Larry Bird high tops of the 80s, doing a whole session on getting summer internships in 2021 with Converse. How to find and fund great internships, pre-health interviews, tips and advice, Peace Corps resume workshop, Careers in Tech Roundtable with Lyft, Medium, and Twitter, Grad Chat Fridays with PhD candidate Stephanie Edwards. So there's all sorts of programming that's taking place every single day within the Career Center. All of that's happening virtual right now, and hopefully sooner than later we'll be back in person. And then lastly, with regards to this virtual open house, I'm so happy that this panel was assembled for tonight. And then we have about 23 or 22 more sessions, some similar to this, some completely different than this, but later this week. So tomorrow evening, we have the AHANA student experience, conversations with students and faculty. AHANA is the acronym that we use for African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, and Native American descendants that are part of the Boston College community. I encourage you to tune into that one. Wednesday evening, focus on residential life. BC students discuss all aspects of living on campus. That'll be a panel like this one. Thursday is navigating the college transition as parents. So if there's any parents watching this one, Thursday could be an interesting one for you. Saturday is the coffee conversation with Danielle Tagian and Phil Landrigan. Danielle is totally pumping that one up. Right, yes. And then there's another one for Saturday, Early Decision, Human-Centered Engineering, which is Boston College's first engineering major, which opens next year, and the Gabelli Presidential Scholarship Program. That's 4 p.m. on Saturday. And then next week and the week after that, there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up too. So I put it in the chat, bc.edu/open house. Continue to register for these sessions. I want to thank, of course, everyone who tuned in for this session, and I'm wishing you all a very safe and healthy start to fall. I want to particularly thank the 4 panelists who joined us tonight, Danielle, Alice, Giancarlo, and Madison, volunteers for us in the admission office, spending a little bit of time on a Monday night sharing their perspective with all of you. Guys, thank you so much. I hope to connect with you on campus sooner than later, but we really appreciate your perspective, and we wish everyone a good night. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.